Mr. Chong for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. CSIS has assessed that foreign interference from the PRC is a serious threat to Canada. I just want to quote what CSIS has assessed. Quote, foreign interference is one of the most important strategic threat to Canada's national security. It poses a significant threat to the integrity of our democratic institutions, social cohesion, economy and long-term prosperity, and fundamental rights and freedoms, end quote. Now, you mentioned earlier in your testimony that that espionage is not exactly the same thing as foreign interference, but it's very closely related. How do you assess the PRC's espionage activities in Canada in terms of threat?
So, Mr. Chair, because of the organized, systematic approach and capabilities of the PRC, we assess that the PRC is the most significant espionage threat against our country. As I mentioned, and some of that is, Mr. Chong will know that is, the dynamic is somewhat similar to the foreign interference in the sense that you have a continuum of activities, because so the intent is very clear. And one of them, for example, is to have the most sophisticated modern military in 2049. It's to have through these 5-year programs to have very dominate certain aspect of the economy in the future. And so the intent is very clear. The means can vary from the overt to the very much covert. And so the dynamic that we see in terms of foreign interference, we see the same thing. We see legitimate means of engaging in our economy that are absolutely appropriate. And I've talked to different companies who are essentially telling us that they know that when they get into some deals, that they will lose intellectual property, very sophisticated, up to and including very covert espionage.
Thank you for that answer. You mentioned earlier in your testimony that CSIS is concerned with the 1,000 Talents program. How do you assess the 1,000 Talents program with respect to government scientists? In other words, do you think it is appropriate for Government of Canada scientists to participate in the 1,000 Talents program or any of the 200 or so other recruitment programs of the People's Republic of China?
So, Mr. Chair, I will reiterate what I said earlier in the sense that we, in these types of cases, we do an assessment of the generic nature of those talent programs. That's one thing. And then at the request of agencies, we will do the screening of very specific individuals. And then we provide that assessment, that advice to the host agency for them to determine. And I think it's the reason I reiterate this point, Mr. Chong, is that there might be some circumstances in which, it is totally transparent. It is an activity that would benefit Canada as well as, in this case, China. So there might be some cases, and so I would not want to be categorical to say 100% no.
So it could be appropriate in some cases and not in others.
But very transparent, and that is one of the key issues at play.
Understood. Now, we know that Dr. Chu clandestinely and corruptly cooperated and collaborated with the government and the military of the People's Republic of China, and also received payment for travel within the People's Republic of China from both of those entities, and did not declare that with the Government of Canada. One of those entities that she clandestinely collaborated with was the Wuhan Institute of Virology. The Wuhan Institute of Virology is not on the list of named research organizations of the Government of Canada, so it is technically possible for a government entity to collaborate with that organization. Do you assess that to be an acceptable security risk, particularly in light of the fact that, according to public sourced reports, Dr. Chu is working at the Wuhan Institute of Virology working with scientists there as we presently speak?
Mr. Chair, I would say that the list of entities that are, have been listed by the government as problematic is a very welcome approach. Because again, it speaks to Mr. Fragiskatos here when you asked this question earlier about how do we work with people, giving them more information about what might be appropriate or not is very important. And in this case, listing these organizations and telling them why it might be a problem helps people make their own decisions. So I think we CSIS have provided advice to ISED and public safety who have come up with that list. In the specific case of the Wuhan Institute, again, there might be legitimate reasons why, for the benefit of Canada, that would be appropriate to work with them. And so I think it would be useful in this case if there were to be any kind of such arrangement to ask specifically what kind of due diligence has been made on these.
Just a very quick
Mr.
final.
Chong,
Just a very
I'm
quick.
sorry, sir, you're out of time. You are out of time. We'll have to go now to Mr. Erskine Smith for 5 minutes.